You've seen a lot, you've done a lot, you have ambitions. Does it stop at a county executive seat, or are you looking to Washington, D.C.? Are you looking at something even greater?
Well, I think most people lose the fact that you should always focus on what's in front of you. And as a state senator, I've found a significant amount of success because I've only cared about doing my job. Okay. I don't think about what's next. I always think about what's in front of me.
Thanks for joining us for the Rundown with Rene Knott. We're here at Carbon, as always. Had a great conversation a few moments ago with Senator Brian Williams. We touched on everything from the county executive seat to a possible city-county merger to also fatherhood and how he was raised by a single mom. Here's that conversation. Joining us for this episode is a man who truly needs no introduction. He is a state senator. He is the one, the only, by the way, Hazelwood Central grad, Brian Williams in the house. Thanks for being here.
It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to talk to you.
Wow. You think I'm going to go easy on you now because you said it's an honor to be here?
Well, we've known each other a long time, so I didn't expect you to go easy on me.
We were just chatting about the fact that you're heading into your 8th year now.
Yeah.
In Jefferson City.
Yeah.
Has it flown by, or has it been a lot going on there?
I will say it's a combination of both. Mm-hmm. You do know my second year was during the pandemic, right. So everything happened with COVID. So that year kind of was a blur. And then 2021 was kind of easing back into things. So I'll say it went fairly fast, but the right amount of time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm very pleased with the timeline.
How much growing up have you done from day one to now?
Well, in the Senate or in general?
Well, we know about both, but the Senate.
Well, as a state senator, I'll say I've grown up a lot because when I got to Jefferson City, I thought I was a leader. Mm. And the reason I thought I was a leader is because I had never led among people who disagreed with me. And I learned really quickly that I had never really been in a position where I was able to convince people who came from different backgrounds, different perspectives, to really understand issues that were deeply important to me and communities I represented. So I learned really quickly that my perspective of the world was pretty monolithic, and I needed to really learn more about other people and clearly our state.
So the other part of growing up is becoming the man that you are today. How much growing up have you done when you think about that, to become the man that you are, the example that you are?
I think, again, it kind of happened in phases. It went from leadership, learning how to be a leader among individuals that don't see the world the way you do, to becoming a father. And in the process of becoming a father, I mean, that changes your perspective completely, as you know. I started seeing a lot of the policies I felt deeply about being not just relevant to other families, but my own.
When you think about that, because we talked to Tashara Jones and she told us that when her son said to her that I could be safe now because she was in control of the police department in St. Louis, do you look at your son and go, I got to make sure that if just for him, it's a better world when he gets to grow up and be a part of it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the really meaningful parts of my career was I had an opportunity to sponsor and pass legislation that addressed police accountability. Mm-hmm. And in that capacity, it was really important for me to do that because at the time, I was the first Black male to be elected to the Missouri Senate in 2 decades. So that hadn't been a perspective of a Black male in a very long time. So it was clearly just off the heels of George Floyd. I represent communities like Ferguson as well as grew up there. So clearly we still had the aftermath of Michael Brown, but I also had an uncle who was a police officer. And I knew very clearly and was very intimate to the fact that his job was high stress and dangerous. So it was important for me to bring law enforcement together with activists and various organizations to ensure not only did we protect Black lives in this state, but we also gave police officers the tools to do their job at a high level.
Was that a heavy crown, or has it been a heavy crown to wear?
It was very difficult to get done. And again, that's why we're so proud of it, because we brought police together, we brought activists, we brought Democrats, Republicans. And in my mind, that was something I always wanted to do when I ran for office the first time. And that was simply wanted to understand something that my mom understood at a very young age. I mean, my mom and I are 19 years apart. And as a teenager, she worked 2 jobs. And working 2 jobs, I'm confident she worked with people she didn't like. Mm-hmm. And I understood if she didn't do her job well, she'd get fired. So I really went into my career with that same attitude. As a state senator, just because I disagree with you doesn't mean it becomes a roadblock to progress for people that'll never get an opportunity to walk those hallways. And I just didn't allow it to become a barrier for me. And we found a lot of success there.
Did you find yourself holding your tongue at times?
I think I found myself recognizing that everyone does not have the same lived experiences. Mm-hmm. And I think there were times, not just in the legislature, but in life, I've accepted the apology I probably never get.
Wow. You brought up something about bringing people together. So we can't help but reflect on you running for county executive and that whole idea of bringing the city and the county together. You talking about that yet?
Well, I'm talking about an $80 million budget deficit and how we need to get out of that. How to ensure that county government is providing services that aren't convoluted and folks like my 96-year-old grandfather can navigate it, and whether or not he has a smartphone. Figuring out how we tell our story better. In Jefferson City, I remind my colleagues all over the entire state that St. Louis makes up 45% of the GDP. And whether you view the city of St. Louis, the region, as this crime-ridden place, every investment that's made in St. Louis creates a positive economic impact for the entire state of Missouri. And I think that story needs to be told consistently and a lot better. And I think once you have leadership that recognize that and has a record of being able to deliver results in environments where folks may not always agree, but most importantly, recognize that our region has to do well in order for our state to succeed.
But is it a better story to tell if we don't have as much as the crime issue? If people aren't looking at St. Louis as being the murder capital and things like that, does that make it a better picture, an easier story to tell?
Well, absolutely. But you have to have leadership, again, that believes that St. Louis deserves the best. This is probably relevant today. I thought about when we went into special session. We went back to address funding for victims that were impacted by the tornado that wiped out the city of St. Louis. And then we also met and had a special session around a subsidy to keep the Chiefs and the Royals in Kansas City. Now, I don't believe that billionaires should get subsidies to build stadiums, and I think that's aging well today. But however, if I was the county executive, I probably would have, maybe it would have been a shot in the dark, but I would have said, before you go to Kansas, why don't you come to St. Louis for the Kansas City Chiefs? Mm-hmm. And again, it's not about whether or not the Chiefs will come. It's about the fact that I believe that St. Louis should have the best sports teams, should have the best talent, should have the best companies, should create the best jobs for a population of folks of diverse backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And if that's not something that leadership believes, then it's going to be very difficult for us to receive those type of opportunities.
I think a lot was exposed when it comes to the disparities in 2020. We found that there were school kids in 2020 that didn't have the ability to have Wi-Fi, didn't have Chromebooks and things like that. If not for charitable organizations stepping in and donations being made, who knows where those kids would be today when it comes to their educations. How do you level the playing field between not just the city and the county, but all the way across the region, because this is a vast area?
Well, I think about from a county executive perspective, my relationships and experience in Jefferson City, which the state oversees funding for public school systems, to be able to help them understand what some of the regional challenges are when it comes to education, and being able to work with the legislature to be on hopefully the right side of funding to ensure that public education is getting the resources to not only ensure students are in a quality classroom setting, but teachers are getting adequate pay to be able to attract and retain quality teachers, addressing issues around behavioral health, which is something that's extremely important to me, ensuring that those services are available for young people that grew up in households very similar to mine. You know, my mom was single, and I remember clearly how difficult it was growing up with my mom having to do everything by herself. Now, I did have grandparents that stepped in, but without that village, a lot of kids don't have that. And I can only imagine the stress that they see at home that spills into the classroom. So that's one part. And then I think the other side of it is that we have so many organizations that have given back. I would consider St. Louis as a region to be one of the most charitable regions in the country. I think we have to ensure that we bring them to the table, but also make sure it's not only around providing resources, but getting results when it comes to how well students are performing in schools.
I told you we weren't going to talk just about politics, but I got to ask you this one more political question. When you heard that Sam Page was not going to run for re-election, what did Brian Williams do? What was your initial reaction?
Well, I was actually eating breakfast when it happened with my 96-year-old grandfather, and he's old school, so he doesn't play being on the phone when you're eating. So I know my phone was going off. I saw a notification, couldn't read it until after breakfast because he didn't care.
Right.
And for me, you know, I had already been in the race. And again, my candidacy was never about Sam Page. It was about how do we take St. Louis County to the next level? And how do I take my experience and accomplishments that I've achieved in Jefferson City for St. Louis as a region and allow that to enhance the quality of life for people right here in a county that's given me so much.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about away from politics was your life in general. And we were talking about how you played football, played a little baseball. How much is sports a part of your life now? Not so much playing it, but the lessons you learned from playing it.
Yeah. Well, I would say sports in general is not, but we do have a 2-year-old son, and he wakes up every day with some type of different sport that he's trying to play. And
At two?
At two, absolutely. Okay. So he enjoys, sports, and he's just an active kid. But I would say there are analogies that I think about when it comes to sport. One of the more common ones is probably golf. And I really think golf is a really good nexus to my life, at least. It's some days, you get a really good drive and you go a far distance, and then you get closer to the hole and you realize that it's a lot challenging just to make a short distance. Mm-hmm. So, the consistency with understanding how to be persistent, even when things don't seem that far away, mm-hmm. but they are. And I think recognizing that life is a process, I've really embraced as an elected leader how important it is to not feel the need to react or be impulsive about things that happen around me. I've also enjoyed the luxury of being comfortable with understanding how to do one thing really well before I jump into trying to do another thing. And I think that's just really afforded me a luxury of building a meaningful career that has created some opportunities for me to consider.
Yeah, the game of golf can be extremely frustrating, but if you're not calm and just kind of, you can't get through it. The ball's going all over the place, so I certainly can understand that. You said your mom's just 19 years older than you. You grew up in a single parent household. How did that shape you?
It shaped me in a lot of positive ways, but I'll say two sides. Let's be clear. My mom to this day is my hero, and what she has given to our family in so many ways, and in my village that I've had around me my entire life. Just consists of really meaningful people. My grandmother, who was the first Black woman to get an international appointment as an auto worker. She retired from Chrysler. She stepped in and gave me so many meaningful tools to life. One that I'll never forget is if you're not sure about the answer, it's okay to let someone know that you need to get back to them. Yeah. Instead of just telling them something that you think they want to hear. And then my grandfather, who stepped up, and again, he's 96, and I know a lot about him. And he gave me a lot of support as a father figure. Now, where the road gets a little tricky is, as a father myself, I find myself having to relinquish a lot of trauma that impacted me growing up, that I didn't realize was an issue until I started thinking about what type of father I wanted to be. And, you know, before I became a dad, Father's Day was not a meaningful day to me. Actually, it was a day that I really kind of resented. Now it has become one of the best days of my life because I think about every opportunity to have a bond with my son that I always wanted to have with my own father.
What did you have to let go?
I think probably anger and a little bit of frustration. And again, you know, my dad, it wasn't that he didn't want to be a father. He had so many challenges. And I think sometimes as adults, when we reflect on our childhood, we don't really lean in on the fact that, yes, our parents could have done better, but at the same time, they still were doing the best that they could. Okay. And I think he did the best that he could, considering the circumstances that plagued him for many, many, many years. Mm-hmm. So I've learned to become empathetic to the fact that he had challenges that impacted how he went about his life. And I've learned to not hold that against him.
Did that come about after you had your son or before you had your son?
I thought about it before I had my son, and I think it became more of a reality afterwards, for sure.
I got you. Where did your son get all that hair from, by the way? Because people who don't know this, when you saw the first picture of him, and I think he was a newborn, this big old afro, like out of nowhere, going, what is this?
Well, I don't know if he got it from his mom or me, but I would say he got his looks from his mom, and I compliment a little bit of that.
The looks or the hair?
Both.
Does he have your smile?
I think he will have my smile. I think he does have my smile, actually.
Okay. Whose athletic ability will he have?
Oh, well, his mom. I mean, she played college volleyball. She won a couple national championships at WashU. Yeah, she's the athletic one. And the brains, actually. You know, I read an interesting article which talked about she not only maintained a 4.0 GPA, so she had the highest academic GPA on the team, and then they also won a national championship.
At WashU.
At WashU.
Not just any school.
At WashU.
At WashU. So, is it safe to say you outkicked your coverage?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's what we always say when you're like, I don't know. How'd you
but
guys
I try to outkick everything.
How did you guys meet?
Well, she was actually, we had a mutual friend, and we became friends through that person, and then we never thought we would date. And then clearly, after a while, she thought it was worth it.
Yeah. Did you throw the smile on her?
I don't think she really cared about that at first. I think that was just something that grew over time.
She goes, all right, I'm stuck with this guy.
I guess, yeah.
I'm stuck with this guy. Why do you think your marriage has been a success?
Well, I'm not married, but I will say that I think our relationship has been a success simply because I understood immediately that life isn't about being in control of your household. And sometimes in order to lead well, you have to be able to follow.
So much of your life is tied together, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you think about your politics, you think about your growing up, and then now it's all kind of led by the same type of philosophies. When you grew up, were you in a household where you were told things, or did you see examples and then you modeled yourself after them?
I would say a combination of both, but it was also just having a desire want to be someone that made a difference in our community, someone that made a difference in life, someone that always felt that if I worked hard, opportunities would come, even if it felt like it was a uphill battle. It was always, just that desire to be successful.
Is that odd for a young black man in St. Louis to have that type of mindset? Because you didn't have a lot of examples.
Yeah, it was very difficult because there was so many other options. Yeah. You know, I saw a lot of different people go directions that I could have easily went in. You know, I remember when we started working on the police reform legislation, and I remember a sheriff in Southwest Missouri, he asked me, why was this legislation so important to me? And I remember simply telling him that what happened to George Floyd could have easily been me. And I believe that was the first time that he felt that he had a connection to someone who could potentially been in the situation as a black person that could be potentially shot by an officer, unarmed. And I think that made it real, and I think that's really when we started really seeing some progress, and I was very proud of that.
You had the talk too growing up, right?
I'm sorry?
You had the talk too when you were growing up. In other words, your parents told you, if the police pull you over, keep your hands out and all that. Yes, sir, no, sir.
Well, I'll tell you this. Let's go further. I was taught at a young age not to ride with many individuals in the car. So we would bring out multiple cars before we rode 4 deep.
Really?
And that's what they called it.
Oh, yeah.
Then riding with more than one other individual in the car. So I never drove a car with more than one person in it because I was concerned and afraid that we would get pulled over. Wow. And you know, clearly I have been in instances where I've been pulled over and been in a situation where the interaction was not ideal, but I didn't let it impact my perception of the profession, and I didn't let it impact my desire to ensure that no one else went through that experience.
You've seen a lot, you've done a lot, you have ambitions. Does it stop at a county executive seat, or are you looking to Washington, D.C.? Are you looking at something even greater?
Well, you know, I think most people lose the fact that you should always focus on what's in front of you. And as a state senator, I've found a significant amount of success because I've only cared about doing my job. Okay. I don't think about what's next. I always think about what's in front of me because, again, we don't know what's promised tomorrow. I can tell you, as someone who is excited about being able to contribute back home, as someone who is excited about the opportunity to be able to bring our region together and get people talking again about the potential of this region, I think that's my primary focus. And as someone who has a young child, I really enjoy being home. Yeah. And I'm excited about the opportunity to be home every day. So to answer your question, I don't see Washington, D.C. being a possibility for me anytime in the near future. And again, there's only one job I want right now, and that's to come home and lead our county.
But never say never.
Never say never, but I can say never for now.
Okay, I like that. Plus, you got to chase that little kid around too.
That's the only thing that
now
matters.
Walking and running and everything.
That's all. And guess what? That's the most important priority is how can I do my best by him first.
He's changed your life, hasn't he?
He changed my life. Yeah,
I know that.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you.
That was fun. Great conversation with you.